Hi everybody, it's Colin. How are you all? I'm joined today with my hero again, John Lenhart. Hi John, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. Now today we are going to be talking about Giver Why. We've got a few differences that we're going to do live on air that maybe I don't understand possibly as well, which is going to be good, so we're all going to learn, including the one doing the interview. So John, if you'd like to tell us a bit more about Giver Why, please.
Yeah, Giver is one of the trickiest, one of the 7 intangible drivers. It's the one that's in the moment. Remember, there's 3 that are focused on the past and 3 that are focused on the future. Giver is in the present. Giver gives a present. That's how you can remember it. So Giver's really tricky because they're right in the center and they don't show a lot of emotion. So the first thing to realize about a giver is that they're really hard to read because they're not going to show emotion. Now, a giver, what they do is 2 things. They either want you to get something tangible, or they want to improve upon something that's already doing well. So there's 2 things the giver do, and they see both of them as a present. They see like giving you something tangible or giving you a way to make something that's good better as giving.
Okay, now, just as you're talking about that, we had a conversation the other day when I asked about my grandmother. Now, no matter what, when I go into her house, I have got to leave with something. And she might give me £10 and she'll say, go and get yourself something nice. And I'm like, Gran, I have plenty of money. Oh, well, we would all like more at some point, but I'm like, Gran, I've got plenty of money. I can afford it. Thank you. Save it and give it to one of my brothers, one of the other grandkids that might want it or need it. She's like, no, please take it. And she forcibly holds onto my arm. And she's a nice, very balanced woman that doesn't get angry. She holds onto my arm so tight until you take the £10.
So there's a couple things in that story. It's a great story because there's a couple things there, okay? So number one is that these givers, remember, these intangible drivers is the why is how people feel connected. You know, with the perceiver, I see that they feel connected. So everybody is trying to feel connected. Everybody's trying to feel connected in who they are. So a giver, and this is hard for us to understand, a giver feels connected when you accept the gift. So you are doing them a huge favor when you accept the gift. So Jonathan likes to tell the story. He tried to give this giver a book. And the giver said, how much is the book? And he goes, well, I'm giving it to you for free. He goes, yeah, but how much is it? He goes, it's $15, but I'm giving it to you free. So he did what your grandma did. He tried to give Jonathan $15. Jonathan said no, and he goes, and he got, like you said, she grabs it. He goes, take it. Jonathan took it, and he said, thank you. And this guy goes, no, thank you. And it's like, he's thanking Jonathan for accepting his money. But they feel connected. So a giver needs to feel connected. I'll tell you another quick story. It's kind of a sadder story. Is there was a teacher who learned this information, and he's my age, you know, in late 50s, and his dad is older. His dad has dementia, is starting to show that. And all of a sudden, when you learn this information, he goes, my dad's a giver. My dad, he goes, I got this job, and my dad was always trying to give me money or buy me lunch, and I'm a man. I have my own job. He goes, I blocked him all these years. He goes, when I took this training, he goes, my dad would pay for my lunch. And he's like, I can afford it. But I'm like, thank you. He goes, you could just see it. So now here's a guy who's losing his faculties, but your mind, your uniqueness is always there. Your uniqueness, you know, when you have dementia, it's your conscious brain that you're losing. You're not losing your uniqueness. He's still connecting into his dad by accessing that giver. And now what he'll do is he'll set up appointments with his dad that go have lunch, and he'll order something like a muffin or something. It doesn't matter. He knows I'm ordering this so my dad can pay for it. And then he looks, and his dad just, and he's like, he goes, I wish I'd have known this sooner, but I'm so thankful I know it now, because he's still having these moments with his dad in his dad, connecting to his dad through his uniqueness.
That is, it is slightly more sad, but it's also fantastic that he can use his last years as this time for connecting. Because could you imagine how he would have felt if he hadn't taken the training and he had went through it and time had went on, and maybe 10, 15 years time he didn't have that chance to do so?
Well, and think about this. His dad could try to give to him now. If he resisted, how do you think his dad's going to react? It's going to be like 10 times worse than your grandma, because now there's less of his conscious brain to operate it. It would be worse, and it'd almost be torture. So it's like, it's really impactful. He's learned this. Now, the big thing, and this is the thing to learn with the givers, okay? The first words out of your mouth when a giver gives, either something tangible or improvement, need to be not negative. So what I like to say to people is, if you know a giver, when they say anything or do anything, just say, okay. Okay isn't positive. Okay isn't negative. It's not negative. If you want to argue with a giver, say, okay, and then you can argue with them. It's like what we said with the perceiver. If you argue with them before you say, I see that, they don't hear it. And I've done this. I've been in classrooms, you know, where there's like 4 giver servers in these high school classrooms, because they've gotten all sorts of trouble. We're going to talk about that in a second. And I have said to them, I'm trying to help them understand their uniqueness, because what happens is I say to them, I'll tell one of them, hand me a pencil, and they'll hand me a pencil, and I'll say, when you tell somebody how to make something better, if they're insecure, they think you're telling them they're wrong. Yep. So I could say, hey, I make these videos with Colin, and a giver could say, well, you know what would help is if you guys would put it on this platform. If I'm insecure, I'm going to go, well, you don't know. Their intent was to make this thing better.
Yeah.
I say to these people, as soon as someone says, well, you don't know, I say, it's like they do this, and I drop the pen on the floor, and they all just instantly smile. Like, that's like, when you say something negative, when a giver has an improvement in mind and you say something negative, it's like you took their gift and dropped it right on the floor, and it makes them mad. And when a giver gets mad, they take.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways to see if someone's a giver, is if they start taking. And we like to say they give to get. You know, the guy who buys his wife a fishing pole. Why? Because he wants to go fishing.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, who did you buy that for? Did you buy it for her, or did you buy it for me? And so what we like to say, and this is another thing you and I bond over, givers, especially giver servers, I call them lovers, because they're going to give and they don't expect anything in return. And so when they give, they do not care about themselves. Yep. So I'll tell you one quick story. Is a giver, I know 4 marriages of a compassion server with a giver server.
Yep.
And it's really frustrating, because the compassion server, like you, wants to know how someone's feeling. The giver server doesn't care about themselves at all.
Yeah.
Of all the people who don't care about themselves at all, it's giver servers. They care about everybody else. They care about giving to everybody else. Yeah. And if you ask them how they're thinking or feeling, they will not share, because they don't get energy, they don't care. And I have taught compassion servers married to giver servers to say this: you know, the biggest gift you could give to me is to share with me what you're thinking and feeling. And the giver server can't not share what they're thinking and feeling.
That's really
that word gift is used in their unconscious makes them do it. So that's the only way a compassion server can get a giver server to share with them, because they will not share about themselves. Your grandma probably doesn't share about how she's thinking and feeling very much at all.
No. And it's very difficult to try and find out. So she can say, I've had a sore stomach today, I've had a sore head today, but that's not how she's feeling. That is what she puts on in front so that I don't ask any more questions. You know, and she doesn't feel it. And it's great how you've just opened up with the giver server there, because I struggle, because you can have a server, and you can have, you know, a giver server and a server. A server wants to serve to make things better for kind of everybody, whereas the giver just wants it for the other person. Would that be right in saying so?
So I'm gonna fine tune it a little more, and this is a really great point, because the way I see it is, and when I go and talk to these corporations, I say it this way. There's two pieces of machinery, and there's two people standing at the machinery working, doing their job.
Yeah.
One person is swearing because it's not going well. One person is doing fine. The server wants to walk up to the guy who's swearing. You would walk up to the guy who's swearing because he has a need. He's in trouble. You as a server would ignore the guy who's doing fine.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a need. The giver doesn't walk up to the person swearing. They walk up to the person who's doing fine because they want to help them get better.
Yeah.
Giver, server can walk up to both. So everybody in the world either has a need or they're doing fine, and giver, server, and server, giver can walk up to both. So the issue with giver, server, and server, giver is they can walk up to everybody, and their problem is when they get their lines crossed.
Yeah.
Every time they are in a bad way, it's because they walked up to someone with a need as a giver. That doesn't go well. They walked up to someone doing well as a server. It doesn't go well. So I try to help these giver servers understand which way they're going. You know, which are you operating in the giver or are you operating in the server? What does that person need? Because that's the internal frustration they end up feeling.
Yeah, no, I love that, because what I find with my grandmother, and I'll always relate back to my grandmother because she's the strongest giver that I know. And when you say thank you, that's the point where the hand gets let go, and she knows that she. Okay, thank you. And I do, and when you said okay, I was like, I always say that, because rather than just say thank you, I always say okay, thank you. So okay means let go. Thank you means I'm going to get away with you before you grab me again. And it's great. No, it's fantastic. And again, I struggle from people to watch from giver to server because it's very difficult. Everyone, they still want to help other people, but it's just, as you say, it's that fine line of being able to determine who they are.
Right. So a giver, the thing is that they can appear to be very unemotional. But, you know, server, that's where that gets confusing. Now, on the test that we give, the ice cream test, it's always interesting because we'll say, you know, people will answer, don't feel bad, that could happen to anybody. That's compassion. Let me buy you another sundae. And so then what happens is a lot of compassion servers don't answer, don't feel bad, that could happen to anybody. They say, let me buy you another sundae. So one of the things we've learned in the test is when somebody says, let me buy you another sundae, I always say to them, let me ask you this question, and I'm going to have to ask you twice because people go, what? And I say, would you want to buy me another sundae and I still feel bad? You don't buy me another sundae and I don't feel bad. And they go, wait, because in their mind, I want to buy you a sundae and you don't feel bad. I didn't give you that option.
Yeah.
I split them. But why would you feel bad if I bought you a sundae? Your compassion. And I say it this way, you're a smart compassion. You're saying, I don't want you to feel bad. The way to do it is to buy you a sundae. So a giver, here's how I know a giver. As a giver will answer that question and go, oh, I'm buying you another sundae. I don't care if you feel bad. your grandma's going to give you something, whether if you still feel bad, she don't care. She's giving you something. That's how I know a giver is.
And I love that. But do you believe that there's many givers as there are the other intangible drivers?
I believe in the why, there's 1/7 of each one. Okay, I believe there's a 7th perceiver, a 7th, you know. Now the issue is what happens to these givers and I'm going to say a lot of compassion males. So what happens with givers, now think about it, everything we've said just feels backwards. I mean, how would we describe a giver? They're a person who wants to give you something. They appear to be very generous. And if you say something negative with your first words, you might not even realize what your first words are.
Yep.
Yeah, but if you do that, they feel offended, disconnected, and they're going to start taking. They're going to start stealing. So if you don't respond to a giver the right way, you are encouraging them to steal. Well, psychology diagnoses them kleptomaniac. They can't help but not steal. They're trying to feel connected. They're a giver. Nobody is responding the right way. Their response is to take. Oh, but they can't stop taking. We say, stop taking, and they take more. They're not a robot.
Yeah.
So the thing that's sad, I will tell you this, when I go into the prisons and I talk to males, especially in the prisons, more than half of the males in prison are compassion or giver. I think a lot of the givers are missing in society. You know, they're muted down, and they will never tell you, you know, back to thinking about other people. I know a giver who said, I've been mad at my husband for 10 years and he has no idea, because they're just not going to share. They're just, you know, people, they're disconnected. They're socially isolated. They're a giver. They appear unemotional and they have a certain way of connecting. So I have found that the guys in prison are actually good guys.
Yes.
They're compassion guys who hulked out. They felt a lot of feelings. They didn't learn their uniqueness. They don't learn how to, and I like to say a lot of the guys in prison are super compassion, like ultra compassion. Like they feel so much pain. They get it out the wrong way, feel even worse, but they hit somebody and now they're in prison. And a lot of these people, males and females who are givers, they took stuff and they can't explain why they took it. I deserved it. I was owed it. If I give to you, then I'm taking. And, you know, I want to tell a quick story, because are you familiar with the band, the Eagles?
Yes, love the Eagles.
So there's this documentary about the Eagles. And I like to use that documentary to teach all 7 intangible drivers, because all of them are present. Yeah. And I think we've talked about this before. The band fell apart because the opposite of those intangible drivers. Then the band got back together, and then the band fell apart the same way. And there's one guy, the giver is Felder, okay? I think his name is Don Felder. So Don Felder, he's this guitarist. And so what happens is Glenn Frey says, Don Felder would give us all these cassette tapes. So in giving. So Don Felder would sit with his guitar and play all these riffs, cassette tapes, and hand them to Glenn Frey. Hey, look, I'm giving you this. I'm giving you this. I'm giving you this. Okay, so he's a giver. Glenn Frey, when he tells the story, he goes, there was a little part on the song, a little riff, and Don Henley and I got together and we wrote Hotel California. So he presented that as if there was just a little thing he was given. When the album came out, they didn't give credit to Felder for the music. So he gave, they didn't give back.
Acknowledge, yeah.
Now, years later, Felder's produced the cassette tapes. It wasn't just a little riff. He gave him the whole thing. He ended up suing and getting his name back on, okay? But what does it look like? What does it look like for a giver? So let's go back in that moment. He gave them that song. Yep. Biggest song they ever recorded. He got none of the original credit. He feels like he needs to take. They show up for the next album, and he goes, I'm singing 3 songs. And Glenn Frey goes, who said you're singing 3 songs? Giver. Now he couldn't voice this. And when you watch the interview, he can't put words to it. And he's just so frustrated, he's crying. But if I put words to him, I'd say, here's what he was saying. I gave you guys the biggest hit ever. You didn't give me any credit. You owe me, so I'm taking. And here's how I'm taking. I'm recording 3 songs. They finally said, go ahead, record a song. He recorded a song. They took him out to dinner, and then Glenn Frey had Henley re-record the song, and they put that on the album. And what do you think happened with the group?
They broke up. That's mega. That's a great
wonder why. I wonder why. That whole video, I could sit there and show you. They're in their uniqueness, and everything's going great. They go opposite their uniqueness. Everything splits apart. They wait for the administrator to bring them back together. They're together. They go opposite their uniqueness. Same thing. Okay?
That's mega.
This is what we're doing to the world. Like that Eagles documentary is our world. And if we keep wanting to deny people's uniqueness and let them go the wrong way and end up in prison, Whose fault is it?
Their own, for not understanding.
Or it's society or institutions for not accounting, for not having a model for psychology.
Absolutely. Now, just as you're touching on that.
Go on.
Sorry, just as you're touching on that subject about psychology there. Now, it's amazing. If you were to sit and watch a documentary such as The Eagles, and you had one of the world's top psychologists watching the same documentary, they will come up with a far different, more complex, indoctrinated, made up, no model, you know, and it's like, you don't know this because this is the way I was taught and there's no other way. And you literally could break that down into half the words, half the time, and have a much larger explanation for it, if that makes sense.
Because we would dissolve it.
Yes.
Everything we've been teaching with these intangible drivers is how to dissolve your interactions with the people. How to dissolve an interaction with a giver? Okay. And then accept it. That dissolves it. It makes them happier and they're great. Everything else is putting that person on a path to end up stealing and taking and end up in prison.
Of course. And the psychology side of it would have them as a narcissist, as a bully, as a and really just the person's unique. It's amazing. Amazing. And I look forward to next week when we come back and we get to do another one again. So thank you once again, John, for your time. It's been absolutely fantastic. I'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.